See, I haven't sat in this chair in a while. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for your patience. Sorry for the little bit of delay in getting started today. But welcome to the Placer County Local Agency Formation Commission meeting of Wednesday, April 10th, 2024. It is 4:06 p.m. And I'm going to start with a call to order and salute to the flag. Supervisor Holmes, will you lead us in the flag salute?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And now we'll go to roll call. Amy, will you call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Alpine?
Here.
Commissioner Landon?
Here.
Commissioner Burris?
Here.
Commissioner Mendonça?
Here.
Commissioner Rohan?
Here.
Commissioner Stevens?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Holmes?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Carl? Here. Alternate Commissioner Knisley?
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Spriggs? Here. And Chair Gustafson.
Here. Thank you, Amy. And Rick, we could barely hear you, so if you do want to speak, you may need some more volume. Can you
Well,
test
that's
it?
unusual that you can't hear me.
Oh, now we can. I asked,
Even
I asked
from
and I
Boston.
asked and I received it. Thank you. We'll now move on to item number 4 on our agenda, changes and approval of the agenda. I understand staff has some recommended changes to accommodate scheduling issues, so.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Hello, Commissioners. I'd like to move item 8A to the front of the line ahead of consent, and also 8D after 8A. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other changes, requested changes to the agenda? And then I'll go back to the item I missed, which was introductions, so I'll go back. Any other changes to the agenda, Commissioners? Any member of the public requesting any changes to the agenda other than the ones we've just made? Not seeing any. All those in favor, or I need a motion, sorry.
I'll move approval.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
roll call, sorry.
Commissioner Alpine?
Yes.
Commissioner Landon?
Yes.
Commissioner Burris?
Yes.
Commissioner Mendonça?
Yes.
Commissioner Rohan?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
And Chair Gustafson.
Yes. Okay, my apologies. I will now go back to item 3 and introductions. So we first want to welcome back Trinity Burris, our commissioner representing the city of Colfax. Thanks for being, it's great to see you, Trinity. And then I'll let Michelle introduce our new executive assistant CEO.
Well, I'll let Erica introduce herself, but this is Erica Sanchez. She joined us about 2.5 weeks ago as our Assistant Executive Officer, so this is her very first meeting with us.
Thank you, Michelle. It's nice to meet all of you. My name is Erica Sanchez. I'm, as Michelle said, your new Assistant Executive Officer. I come to you from El Dorado LAFCO. I was the Assistant Executive Officer there since 2019. I actually started with El Dorado LAFCO in 2006 as their policy analyst, so I'm definitely not new to the LAFCO world. I'm very familiar with LAFCO, so I'm excited to be on board with Placer LAFCO. I know that every county is definitely different with local circumstances, and every LAFCO is a little different, so I look forward to learning a lot, absorbing a lot, and jumping right in to help out and present things to the commission and to help Michelle and Amy, who have both been wonderful, bringing me on board. Thank you.
Erica, I'm going to ask you to say a few more words about where you grew up, and so that everybody in Placer County understands you're Placer grown.
Well, literally, I'm Placer County born. I was born here at Auburn Faith Hospital. Most of my family lives in the Auburn area. Long-time Auburn families, like my grandparents both went to Placer High School, class of 49, I think. So they've been around for quite a while. Grew up in El Dorado County, but came over here quite a bit. I really love the Auburn area. I love Placer County. I'm happy to be here. I will also say that my grandfather, Dwayne Frink, was on a number of local boards and committees. He was pretty active in his retirement years, and he, for a couple of years, he served on the Placer LAFCO Commission. I believe he was a chair for a little while. So a number of years ago, we got to go to a Cal-LAFCO conference together, and that was pretty special to be able to do kind of multi-generational. So I'm happy to be here. Like I said, my grandma's very proud of me.
Well, welcome back.
This meeting. Thank
And
you.
we're glad to have you back in Placer County.
And
At
thank
least-
you very much. And I do recognize a few of you from some Cal-LAFCO events. So it's nice to see the ones that I recognize, and it's nice to really meet the rest of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Okay, we'll move on then to item 5 on our agenda. This is our public comment period. This is an opportunity for anyone in the public to address the commission on any items that do not appear on today's agenda. You can submit a speaker card. We asked for that, but I don't have any on public comment. But we can only limit your time to 3 minutes for public comment. We can't take action or discuss any items you raise, but we're happy to hear that and consider that for the future. Are there any members of the public here in the room that would like to address us under public comment? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Byron Chapman from Lincoln. From a perspective of a person being in a wheelchair for 30-something years, pulling up to the parking lot a little while ago kind of made me a little giddy. The fact that everything is lined, you know exactly where you should and could park, and as far as getting from there to the areas that are marked, that doesn't necessarily mean those lines are going to save your life, but it certainly adds to the helpfulness that it does. So with that, I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you. It took us a while, but we got it done, and we're thankful to our facilities staff for making those long-needed adjustments. I don't see anyone else in the room, and so Amy, I'll ask if any of you online would like to address the commission today, please raise your hand online and we will unmute you for public comment. We're not seeing any hands raised. Okay, then we'll close public comment. We'll move on to item 6 on our agenda, Thank you, Michelle. We'll move on to item 8A, contract authorization consultant agreement with Strategy Driver, Inc. for a strategic plan.
Thank you, Chair. The commission may recall you directed me to start a strategic planning session back in the fall, but I was on medical leave for a few months, and so some of the projects were postponed, and this is one of the projects. So the facilitator for our strategic planning sessions, we're hoping to have 3, is online. She is at a conference today, so she could not be here in person, but I see that she's unmuted herself, so I'll let her introduce herself. And Ellen, I'll advance the slides for you.
Thank you, Michelle. My camera, I don't know why, I don't think I have access to turn my camera on, but I'm happy to turn that on. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to address the commissioners today. This is about the strategic planning process that you all decided you wanted to proceed with, and we developed a proposal that we hope meets your needs, and of course happy to take feedback on our proposed process. I'm Ellen Cross. I'm the CEO of Strategy Driver. I'm working with my colleague Maria Pascal, and we've worked on a number of strategic planning processes. I've actually been working in this industry, I should probably correct the number, it's now 35 years. I've had my own firm for 19 years as a small business. And Maria has been in the industry working for 20 years and also specializes in communication and engagement. She and I together worked on a number of projects together, including City of Oakley, San Bernardino Valley Water Conservation District, Pajaro Valley Water Agency, The Regional Water Authority, which Placer County Water Agency is a member of, in addition to 20 other water agencies and a wastewater agency. And Maria and I also work together on the Calaveras County Water District Strategic Plan. So we've been working together for a little over 6 years. So the planning approach in its most simplified communication is really 3 parts. We do surveys and interviews, and I want to thank all of you for participating in the survey. We're in that part of the process right now, and then we will do interviews. And through the survey and the interviews, we collect all of your thoughts that you put into those surveys and the interviews, which we're about ready to kick off. So you should have received an email from me already to get those scheduled, because we have a short time frame in which to do those. But within those interviews, we're going to talk about the mission, vision, and values, very similar to the questions you were asked in the survey. We're going to look at opportunities and challenges that Placer LAFCO is looking at, and then the desired outcomes that you would like to see as a commissioner and your point of view. And then with that information, we come back and we do 3 workshops. The first one will be a draft mission, vision, and value. We will meet with staff prior to that just to go through it, make sure we understood all the information that was given to us. And within that workshop, we'll finalize the mission, vision, value at the second workshop and develop goals. And then at the third, we will populate the goals with priority actions. So those 3 workshops really create the opportunity for you to review the content that was developed from the survey and interviews, and then you get to have discussion about that and take review and give feedback. And that will culminate in a draft strategic plan that you will also have an opportunity to review. And at each stage of this, we like to keep the process moving forward. At workshop 2, you'll actually vote on the mission, vision, and values. And then as we develop the goals, and when you come back to workshop 3, you'll vote on the goals more formally. And then at the final presentation of the strategic plan, you'll vote on the priority actions, which will make up your strategic plan. Next slide. Here's just a glance at the schedule. This schedule, of course, can be adaptable. We know that there is a number of commissioners who may be seeing the schedule for the first time, and staff. We understand there are holidays, there are vacations planned, and we definitely want to get the majority, if not ideally, all the participation from the commissioners and the staff at those workshops. So these are the dates that we're looking at, is gathering the data, which is the stage we would be in right after the approval of the proposal. And then we would move forward with your first workshop this month. And then we would continue to analyze that data and develop content so we could be prepared for workshops in June and July, and then write up your final plan for August with final approval in September. So this is just a cadence that would work, but it's flexible where we could be looking at finalizing those dates. Next slide. Any questions?
I'll go to commissioners. Are there any questions? I have a quick question on the duration. What do we anticipate the timeline for, the duration of time for those individual workshops?
So right
Sure.
now, we have them scheduled from 9 a.m. until 1, except that the last workshop, workshop 3, we have scheduled from 9 a.m. until 2. But they're not set in stone, and we can certainly amend the schedule and the dates.
I just want to make sure the commissioners are aware of the commitment it will take, and that we can adjust our calendars. I know Amy's been working on the calendaring and scheduling with all of us, but make sure that we're there and able to participate. Yeah. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any. Michelle, did you have any other remarks on this?
No, just the staff recommendation, which is to authorize me to execute the consultant agreement with Strategy Driver in an amount not to exceed $63,433 $430.
Thank you. Before we take action on that, I'd like to open it up to any public comment on this item. Are there any members of the public that would like to talk about our strategic initiative? I'm not seeing any in the room. If you're online and you have a question or comment, you can raise your hand and we will call on you. We're not seeing any hands, so I'll bring it back to the commission. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second?
Thank you. Motion and second, and we'll do a roll call vote.
Commissioner Alpine,
Yes.
Commissioner Landon,
Yes.
Commissioner Burris,
Yes.
Commissioner Mendoza,
Yes.
Commissioner Rohan,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes.
and Chair Gustafson.
Yes. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 8D, LAFCO projects update. The first one is the Focused Municipal Service Reviews, City of Lincoln. And you wanted to take that one first?
Yes, thank you. I do have City Manager Sean Scully here with the City of Lincoln, who will provide the substantial part of the report. But I do know that the city has issued a contract for the long-range master plan, fire department master plan. And so, Sean, I'll let you take over.
Sure thing. Good evening, LAFCO. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. I just wanted to give a quick update on where we're at on our, we're calling it Standards of Coverage Survey and Study. We issued an RFP, had a number of respondents, and we really took our time to make sure that we were contracting with the right consultant to give us a really quality product. You know, we try to avoid planning documents that collect dust on bookcases behind me here in my office. So we found AP Triton, who are a major player in this space. In fact, they've done projects, similar kinds of work for Sonoma County Fire District, Santa Barbara, Napa Fire Department, Nevada LAFCO, and actually they have worked for Placer LAFCO in the past as well. So we were excited about their localized experience. Went through a full review and competitive process, and they were awarded the contract that has been executed, and they're beginning their mobilization and sort of data collection. I'll just take 2 quick minutes to step you through what they're going to do for us so that you can get a generalized idea, and I'm happy to answer any questions. One thing that we did that wasn't required by LAFCO, but we just sort of felt it was important since we were doing this work anyway, was that we actually added on additional work into the contract to expand it beyond fire. So it's not only going to be a standards of coverage survey for fire, but it's also going to include the police department as well. The project and process includes some kind of preliminary steps, which we're getting to now, which is sort of initiation and development of work plan, and then a lot of data collection. So they're going to be going through everything from zoning maps to current projects to growth areas, our facilities, our collective bargaining agreements with our public safety groups, our OES and FEMA approved plans, budgets, curated dispatch information so they can get an idea about what kind of call volume we have and the resources we have to respond to those calls, and then of course financial data and fee schedules of how we fund the department. Then there's a lot of community outreach. So we're going to have virtual community meetings, identification of key areas. There will be stakeholder discussions. We'll be having meetings with sort of our county and city partners, of all of whom we provide and receive mutual aid from, and some administration of those surveys will really try to get a generalized view from all participants and recipients of the service. Then there's the community risk assessment, and that's sort of a process wherein they will look at the area we do serve and the area where we will serve in the future and get an idea about what the likely call volumes and needs will be. After that, there's some mapping work that's done where they sort of look at what, it's not all really about response time, that's a big part of it, but a lot of it's also the types of services we intend to or do provide. Then there'll be a bunch of analysis work that they mostly do as part of their expertise, and some review of historical performance. Until very recently, the city of Lincoln was pretty understaffed in our fire department, and we're just now getting up to close to what I would call just below standard coverage in terms of staffing, and so we have some work to do there. And then once all of that work is done, there will be the plan delivery, and we'll be doing a series of community meetings and discussions at a city council level about it, and we'll be delivering all of this information to Michelle and the LAFCO staff as much as possible along the way. Certainly would encourage or appreciate any LAFCO commissioners and community members that would like to participate virtually or in person. We'd love to have you, and that's kind of where we're at. We think it's going to take every bit of on the fire side, probably every bit of 6 months to really make sure that we get this done, but we're trying to move as quickly as possible, just understanding that we're more interested in the quality of the report, because we're going to hopefully use this for a long time to come.
Great. Well, thank you, Sean. Appreciate that update. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Not seeing any?
Thank you. So the staff recommendation is just to come back in 6 months to give you another update if it's not ready. And it could be that the master plan is complete at that point, but it's difficult to tell right now.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sean. Appreciate the update from the city.
Thank you very much.
And Michelle, do you want to move on then to North Tahoe? And
Yes, I see Chief Layton on the line. Again, I'm going to give Chief Layton the floor. But at the meeting approximately 6 months ago, the commission had allowed the two counties more time for their rev and tax code negotiations, rev and tax code 99, which is where we've been for a little over a year. So I've asked Chief Layton to provide an update because they've met a number of times since then. Chief Layton?
Yes, good evening, everybody. Hello, Supervisor Gustafson, members of the commission. You have to excuse me, I've been sick for the last couple of days. Fire Chief Steve Layton, thank you. Just want to kind of give you an update on where we are and where I think we're going. We started this process in 2014, 2016, and then we took some time off and reinitiated the process again in 2021. We've been trying to complete this deal for 3 years now. On September 13th, the LAFCO Commission approved an extension to April 1st. Between September 13th and April 1st, we've conducted 5 meetings with El Dorado County representatives, and we've come up with a deal. Both of the boards have agreed upon it. Both North Tahoe Fire Board and Meeks Bay Fire Board have both agreed to the principles of the 4 things that are in the agreement. They're in your packet, and I won't go into too much detail unless you have any questions. I want to thank Sue Haneke, Shauna Purvines, and Michelle McIntyre for providing us the information, and my staff for getting us to where we are today. I'm highly confident that we're going to get this to the finish line. I know El Dorado County's on board and Placer County's on board, and we just need a little more time. So I'm asking that to extend the request till the end of December 31st, will allow us time to get this to the finish line.
thank you, Chief. Appreciate the update. Commissioners, do you have any questions? We are thrilled. Oh, Rick has his hand up. Commissioner Stevens?
Well, I made the motion back whenever that was, that we light a match and say April 1st. And I do believe that the fire districts have come to an agreement. Now they got to go through the process. And I didn't think they needed all the way to the end of the year, but the chief's big concern is when we get down to the end is getting on the Placer County Board of Supervisors. Your agenda gets pretty tight, I hear. So if they get it through, I would hope, Cindy, that you could get it on the agenda and get this deal done. So
I'll
I
do my
support
best.
going to the year.
No pressure.
No,
I'm sure
plenty
we
of
can
pressure.
accommodate the schedule. We've been waiting for this for quite some time, so
Yes.
we're excited to see it come to a conclusion. Thank you, Rick. Any other comments? Okay. Chief, thank you for the report. Michelle, did you have any, do we need to take a motion on that?
Yes,
action?
just to change the staff recommendation a little bit, 6 months for Lincoln, we'll come back, and then I'll come back with an update December 31st, well, at our December meeting, but hopefully I'm coming back with a project and not a request for an extension.
Yeah, if I could, we're hoping to have this done by the timeline October 1st. I mean, that's ideal if everything lines up. The next step is for Goodwin Consulting to complete the fiscal impact analysis. I know during the May board meeting for El Dorado County, their board is going to vote on a resolution. Then we would be waiting for Placer County Board of Supervisors to vote on a resolution, and then it will go to Placer LAFCO, and then Michelle and her team will do their great work to get this done.
Right, so let me just make sure I clear up the process a little bit further, and Chief Layton did a great job. We should hire him at LAFCO. But so it will go to the Placer LAFCO for your approval, and if it is approved, then it goes back to the registered voters of the two districts. So we will be holding a protest hearing, and then if necessary, we'll have an election. So it's very similar to the process we went through with the city of Lincoln pretty recently. And then the outcome of the protest hearing or the election will inform us if it passes the voters' decision, I guess. Desires.
Thank you. Okay, so that,
I just have
yeah.
a question clarification, so.
Would you turn on your mic?
There it is.
Thank you.
Question clarification, so, extending this to the end of the year, or to, by 6 months, and then, having it out to the voters, or the protest, hearing, or vote around November, December?
It's difficult. We have some mandated timelines, so once the commission takes action and approves the project, then staff has to take it to the voters at least 35 days after the commission meeting, but before 60 days. So we are limited, so I can't give you an exact timeline, but there are deadlines.
So we're expecting this to come back to us by,
I'm hoping
December.
in, as Chief Layton said, October, but it has to go to the two county boards of supervisors. On their agenda, they have to adopt the resolution. They submit the resolution to staff, and then staff finishes the process, which is bringing it to your board for approval. And then, again, it goes to the voters. Now, if there's an election, I cannot tell you what that timeline will be, because that's that's Ryan Ronco's area of expertise and not mine. So, but as far as getting it to the protest hearing, we see an opportunity to bring it before the voters before the end of the calendar year. It's just making sure all of the steps happen in
so
a certain
come
time.
to us by December this year for us to
Right.
approve it, all right, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, then we will go to public comment on these two items on staff updates.
Well, I wanted to comment on the MSR for Lincoln. I came in during that, so I don't know if there's already been public comment on that.
No, there hasn't. These are the staff update items, item D on our agenda. So now's the time to speak to both of those staff updates.
Well, thank you. On the MSR, I just wanted to address the fact that the city does not have a stormwater map. and I lived on Shellbach Avenue for 3.5 years, and during regular time, the water flows from the pipes under the street into the channel there. But then when it's heavy, the water begins to rise there and then flow into the streets instead of out. And then when it's really heavy, the whole ditch fills up and overflows right next to the ball field and starts to encroach on the ball field. And at the end of that channel, when it gets to Joyner Parkway, there are 2 6-foot diameter pipes that go under the street, but they aren't 6 foot. There's nothing on the other side that's been prepared. Though there's a manhole, I guess we call them a person hole these days, I don't know. But anyway, there's a manhole which has stormwater in it. But anyway, the whole thing doesn't work. And I have a tough time seeing how you can do an MSR if that's part of the responsibility, if there's no stormwater map. Maybe it's in somebody's mind. And on I think it's important to mention, well, a couple things on the vote, the annexation. It seems to me it's a real change, a significant change in what the project is, and LAFCO needs to do a reanalysis of the whole thing, given the significant changes in what's there economically and potentially, and so forth. So yeah, I'm quite concerned about that. I'm not saying it has to start from scratch, but it seems like it's a very different proposal, and it looks like. And to sum up what happened is they drew the map so that next time it'll pass. They drew the map so next time it's going to pass. And I'm not sure that was the intent, but it sure looks like that. And I don't think that's a very good basis to go back and start, without reconsidering the economics and the MSR and the whole thing and what's being affected. Well,
that's not the item on today's agenda. We're just talking about this one focused effort. But Mr. Garabedian, do you mind giving us your name for the record?
Oh, Michael
Failed to get you
Garabedian.
to do that, yeah.
Placer County tomorrow, and Pacific to American Divide. And well, thank you for letting me adjust my agenda, even if it wasn't quite in order.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment on the updates from the staff? Anybody online would like to speak to us on the updates? Not seeing a hand go up. Okay.
Oh, there's.
Oh. Ms. Henneke?
In the back.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. I'm so sorry. I was looking over my shoulder.
Thank you very much. Once again, Byron Chapman, a resident of Lincoln. My concerns, and I think many people that I've talked to in Lincoln as well, our concerns indeed are the information that I believe you're as a commissioner going to need to know. In addition to that, just as a FYI, in addition to where Mr. Garabedian had mentioned, there's also a housing project that's already approved, and it's going to go into that, literally into that specific area. So how that's going to be dealt with, I'm sure those that do that kind of work have that in mind. One question that I do have, though, with this process, hopefully I'm wrong on this. Let's say we do get down the road, and it is December 31st, 2024. At what point at that juncture, then what happens? If you don't have the information, and we're at that point in time, what's the process and what needs to be done in order to get there? Thank you.
So again, are we talking about the North Tahoe Meeks Bay? That's the December 31st. Okay, so with Lincoln, we are only talking about the long-range fire department master plan for the MSR, because it was a condition of approval that the commission approved about a year ago. when we were when the commission considered the service review and the sphere update for the city.
Ms. Henneke had her hand raised.
Good afternoon, Sue Henneke with El Dorado County. And I just wanted to really thank Michelle and the commissioners for the extension last year and express what a pleasure it's been working with the two boards and coming to this agreement. I think we're really proud of what we've been able to accomplish, and we are looking forward to bringing this to a conclusion. As Chief Layton said, we do plan to bring this to our board on May 14th. And that is a meeting that is being held up in Lake Tahoe, so I think that's fitting. And just looking forward to the next steps and, like I said, bringing this to a conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Not seeing any other hands raised. Michelle, did we need to take action or just give you direction? It says.
Just direction, please.
Okay, so with the staff's recommendation that we extend for 6 months until the end of the year, it's just direction? And I'm
Yes.
seeing head nods? Okay. Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Carl, there is a seat up here for you if you want to come up. I failed to. Okay, you've got the best seat. Thank you. Okay.
And thank you, Chief and Sean, for providing the updates.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we'll move on then. We want to go back to our consent items. Item number 6 on our agenda. We have 2 items on consent, our minutes from our commission meeting on January 31st, 2024, and we have our financial reports for January and February of 2024. Do any commissioners wish to make comments or pull either of those items? I had one I wanted to do, but I wanted to see if anyone else. But Michelle, did you want to speak to it, or do you want me to?
Oh, go ahead.
I brought to Michelle's attention that I think the minutes are probably accurate. If you look at page 3 of 4, page 7 of the packet, under business items, we provided Ms. McIntyre with directives regarding the next steps, and it talks about initiating engagement with special districts and cities to gauge their interest in collaborating with LAFCO to update its policies. I think we failed to either say it, but I think our assumption was the county would also be involved in that as well. So is that a fair reflection of what I think our intent was? I don't think in our language we maybe said it. I don't know, but
No, we
the
watched
intent
the
was-
video, Amy watched the video a few times, and we did not catch the county, but I think you're right, that was the intent. But that's
That all of
that's
the
exactly-
members would be included in
Yes.
update to the policies. We want to work collaboratively.
I did notice it also in the minutes and recognize that the update is not actually on this agenda. We have policy discussions on the work plan side, but I just wanted to note we were supposed to get an update on this in this meeting, and it's not on the agenda.
Right, so if Chair Gustafson wasn't going to address it, I was going to ask for clarification. I didn't want to email just the special districts and the cities. And then also the other consideration is we have our strategic planning session. And to me, at least, I don't know how the commission feels, but it seems that we need to, it would be better for me if the commission told me what their priorities are for the policies, because we have over 50 policies, right? And so it would be good for the commission to decide what your priorities are, and then we go out to our partner agencies with, here are our top 10, but that was my request for clarification on that direction.
Okay, well, why don't we take that up under commissioner comments, because we don't have an agenda item on this. This is just consideration of the minutes. Does that seem fair to the commission? I think that's the appropriate way to do it. And make the correction that we did mean to include the county in that the city, special districts, cities, and county to gauge their interest in collaborating on those.
Thank you.
And then, are there any public comments on the minutes or the financial statements? I'm not seeing any in the room. Is there anyone online? If so, raise your hand and speak to the consent items. I'm not seeing any, so I bring it back to the commission. Do I have a motion on the consent items as amended?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call.
All right, Commissioner Alpine,
Yes.
Commissioner Landon,
Yes.
Commissioner Burris,
Yes.
Commissioner Mendoza,
Yes.
Commissioner Rohan,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens,
Yes?
and Chair Gustafson.
Yes. And then I'd look to Mr. Walker. Can we discuss Commissioner Rohan's comments and that item on the policies under our commissioner comments at the end of the meeting?
Yes, you may, Chair. I turn on my camera, but I'm not able to get it to work, but yes, you may.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so with that, we'll move to our public hearing items. And first one on this is 7A, proposed work plan and budget for fiscal year 24-25. Michelle?
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to go through the work plan first because it is driving, as normal, our budget. So I did group them into types, and so the first one, or the first group, is all of the service reviews and sphere studies that we have on our proposed work plan. Let me back up a second. This is staff's proposed work plan, and I would like to reiterate that as the staff recommendation says, you can certainly amend the work plan and make additions, delete, etc. But we do have a number that are continuing from from the current fiscal year. We have the City of Rockland, their service review, and I was told by the consultant that they are a month ahead of schedule. So we may be getting that service review in the next month or two. And then the City of Roseville, their service review is behind schedule. I think we're still waiting for data uploads, but in looking at what the consultant has billed thus far, it's pretty negligible, or just like I think 4% of the contract, whereas I think Rockland is close to 90%. So then the other study that's continued for the last couple of years is the fire agencies study, which we'll talk a little bit more about elsewhere on the agenda. But at the moment, this is the proposal from staff. Okay, and then we have our reorganization process. So I did group changes of organizations and reorganizations together. And with that, there's a couple that are continuing from the last fiscal year, the North Tahoe and Meeks Bay project, which hopefully we can conclude at the calendar year, as Chief Layton indicated. The Placer Hills and the Newcastle Fire Protection District application that we issued an incomplete application letter for, which I'll talk about a little bit more in the upcoming item. And then we do have a number of new projects and new types of projects. So the City of Lincoln will be coming back for an annexation of Village 5A. I'm sorry, I left 5, but it is 5A because it's not all of Village 5. So I apologize for that, Sean. And then we do have a number of fire contracts that are in place in Placer County. Now, not all of them are subject to 56134, but some of them are. And what that means is that the state law changed in effective January 1st, 2017, and all contracts. Fire contracts now must be reviewed and approved by LAFCO. But there are some contracts that have been in existence before SB 239 and 56134, so those are not subject to LAFCO review. Again, those are new to this LAFCO, but it's certainly not new state law. And then there's some other projects, extension of water services, or sewer services for the city of Auburn. I believe there's 2 parcels that they may be considering, but it's a little bit difficult to know the timing with the city working on their general plan update. So that's about it for the reorganization proposals. And also want to remind the commission that we typically do not initiate projects because of the protest threshold, drops down to 10%. So as a result, a lot of these projects, we are waiting for the cities, we are waiting for the special districts to come to us with proposals. So the timeline is driven by when they submit a complete application. And then we have our administrative work, and these are new and they continued throughout the fiscal year and the calendar years. The only thing that's really new that's on this list is a financial audit, and that's because we've gone to, we audit every fiscal year, but we only have the auditors come out every 2 years to save a little bit on the contract and cost of the contract. So moving on to the proposed budget, unless anyone has any questions on the work plan, again, you can make amendments.
Chair, I have a
Yes.
I do have a couple questions / requests on the work plan for the priorities. On number 16 and 18, they're prioritized as high. For CSA 28, the county has operated in a specific manner for 40-ish years, and I know that staff right now is diligently researching the zones of benefit that were formed under that, and so I just am hoping to request that maybe we can move that to moderate instead of high, just because I know it's going to take some time on that one. And then the second one was the Alta Services Agreement. Similar thing in the sense of I think any change in organization on that one is going to need to be analyzed quite a bit, and I think that will take some time as well. And so just didn't want it to be on high priority and then have us fail to meet that threshold. So my request would be to move those to moderate priority.
Okay. What was the second one, Chantal?
Number 18, the Alta Services Agreement.
Thank you.
Okay.
I had
Okay.
two things for clarification. My understanding was on the work plan that Roseville was ready to go, but Rockland was too, so we let Rockland go first. So that was the communication that I had received from our city manager. So it's not that Roseville's behind, it's just that we stepped back so that Rockland, because they were ready to go, right?
No, we have 2 different consultants. South Fork consultant is working on the Rockland service review. AP Triton is working on the Roseville service review. So they're different. They're not tied to each other at all, and one is not driving the other as far as the timeline. And in fact, I believe we issued, I could be wrong, but I believe we issued the contract for Roseville first before Rockland. But you know, the other part of this is that the city of Roseville is a full service city with, I don't even remember how many, I think 14 services. Commissioner Rohan will tell me. And so, and Rockland, not as many, right? So that will, you know, fewer chapters, of course, because fewer services, and so also they were able to upload the data a lot quicker because they have fewer data to upload.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. And then the other thing, when I was reading through the packet, I seem to recall last year when we were looking at the list of things that the Roseville Cemetery District was on the list, and I don't see it on here this time. Did that just get dropped off because it, priority-wise, or was there an update that I missed?
No, I am aware that we have a number of cemetery districts, not just Roseville, with boundary issues.
Right.
And that did get dropped off the list because, just where we have several other projects. But, and I believe the Roseville Cemetery District, because I met with them, and the Newcastle, Gold Hill, Rockland Cemetery District, I'm probably getting the order wrong, they were able to come up with a workaround, a temporary workaround, so that if you live in Roseville, you can be buried in the Roseville Cemetery District. If you live in Rockland, you can be buried in the Rockland Cemetery District. But absolutely, we need to amend those boundaries, and also Cemetery District 1, which is really the Lincoln area, that also needs to be corrected. Their boundaries need to be corrected, as well as Auburn. So
it's a matter of priorities, which I totally get, because in the scheme of the list that you gave, that doesn't really rise to some of these urgent levels, but we can expect that as a board to come back up at some point to bubble up.
sure, and we can certainly add it to the list and maybe make it like a moderate or a lower priority, but have it on the list so it doesn't get completely dropped off, if that's your preference.
Well, if it's already on your radar, because you brought it up before I could interject, but the other districts, yes, it's not just Roseville. I was talking about all of them. They all have, similar issues. So as long as it's on your radar, I don't see the need to amend what you have here, because as I read through this list, like I say, there are much higher priorities than that. But as long as somebody's tracking it, I just wanted to bring it up, just so that I knew that it didn't get dropped off completely.
Yes.
Okay.
And just following up on that, I'll add Colfax into that. I spent an hour out there today with their board members, and they have some issues they're considering, so.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just better just to have it on our list so that these agencies know that we're aware, and
They're not sure yet what they're gonna do, but they are pursuing other alternatives, so, or considering other alternatives, so.
Okay.
Supervisor Holmes.
Yes, I just want some clarification on number 16, changing it from high to moderate, the change of organization for CSA 28. What's the justification for changing?
So my understanding is that because the county's been operating for 40 years under a certain parameter, that it's going to take time for staff to analyze that. I think I'm just going to read my notes here, that they're researching CSA 28 and the zones of benefit that were formed under the same, and are going to continue to do so this fiscal year. But my understanding was that it was going to be a process, and that it was going to take more than just this fiscal year to accomplish that.
Okay, is staff recommended that?
Yes.
Okay, all right, fine.
Yeah, not just me going willy-nilly.
Any other, yes, Cherry?
Thank you. So I do agree that we should put the cemetery districts on this, because I think it's good for us, but then I also think it's good for the district, but then also for the public too, since this is the public-facing document that people go to see what it is that we're working on, thinking about all of that. But with that said, Michelle, if there's anything else like that that's a lower priority, but you're still tracking in your mind, I think it would be good just to have a repository of it all someplace for us. And then us as a board know, okay, for you and for us, our priorities are anything high and moderate, and then whatever we can get to on the low, that's good. But just have one place for everything, just for transparency's sake, for all the stakeholders. I think.
No, that's a great idea.
And I don't know if there's anything else, anything more than the cemetery districts, but.
Well, I am bringing this back to the commission in June, so, if there's others on the list. We do have a very long list with 37 special districts and 6 cities, so our list of studies, and it's quite extensive, so we can certainly put it on just, for the radar. I do like your idea of the low priority. So maybe not urgent, but hopefully we can get to it this year, and if not this year, next year.
Awesome. So when you come back in June, this one page will then be 42 pages. We totally get it. We get it.
Well, I do think it's commendable that so many of these things weren't being dealt with, and since Michelle's arrival, and hope we don't scare Erica away with the amount of workload we have to catch up on, because some of these have been talked about for a long time, and I do think that Michelle's leadership of the organization has put us back on track to being up to date on our LAFCO policies, procedures, and efforts. So I thank you, Michelle, even though you're creating work here. Members of the public, is there anyone who would like to address our draft proposed work plan and budget? Mr. Garabedian.
Thank you. Michael Garabedian, Placer County Tomorrow. I wanted to address the question of municipal service review in unincorporated areas that aren't going into cities. As some of us might have noticed, the development in the unincorporated areas is going like gangbusters, at least. And it's not clear to me that it's getting the same kind of municipal services review, the county area in the unincorporated area, as say, cities are. And a good CSRs might be an example. CSDs might be an example. I'm not sure. And what this comes to mind, what it brings to mind, is that the Commission on Local Governance in the 20th century, was the 21st? Anyway, it was the commission that met in 2000, and it developed the major amendments to the LAFCO law that were then adopted in the Hertzberg bill that made those major changes. And so I went to a couple meetings of that commission, and one of the most dramatic kind of turning points in the view of the commission was an example of an area in a county where the LAFCO would, for a particular area, it would gather all of the different agencies that provided services there and would get them all around the table with all their plans. And the idea was to find out who would be the best entity to do the service, provide those public services of the different kinds. And so I know that was very influential with them. And I don't particularly see that orientation here, but I could be missing something. So, and CDs, community service districts, would be an example. And so I wanted to bring that issue up, that kind of concern, because that was a major emphasis in the LAFCO law to make sure the services are being provided logically in a wise manner and giving costs and everything else. So. And I haven't heard this here, but I've only been here for a few minutes. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who would like to address the commission? Any of you online that would like to raise your hand? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Michelle, would you like to address his question?
So the
Garabedian's question.
So the reason why staff chose certain studies ahead of others, as I mentioned, we do have 37 special districts. We have the 6 cities. And so you're probably wondering, well, why did you only choose Colfax, Loomis, and Auburn? You know, and for the new ones, right? And then as opposed to all the other agencies. And it's simply because the cities, those 3 cities are going through a general plan update. Now, some of them are a little bit more ahead than others. For example, Loomis and is probably the first, I should put that one on the list first since they're ahead of the other 2 cities. But, oh, last night, oh, fantastic. Yay, that's breaking news. So Loomis should be there. Colfax, I know we submitted comments on their general plan, draft EIR, 3-4 months ago, et cetera. And then I know the city of Auburn just started. So that's why we chose those cities for our new studies. And then South Placer Municipal Utility District, that's another one where so the commission approved a reorganization of, I believe it was South Placer, and Penryn back about 12 years ago. And what they did was they merged, I'm gonna use it as a non-LAFCO term, but they merged the two districts, and then what they did was they said, okay, and the sphere is the two spheres of the existing districts. Well, the problem is that there's some areas that they provide services via contract, and some areas in their sphere that they will never provide services to. And so this has been on our radar for a couple of years. Again, it's one of those where, okay, it's not like it's not an emergency, right? Their septic or sewer or whatever they're on hasn't failed, and we have, and those that did have issues, there was one on Boyington where the commission was able to address. So that's why that district is there, and then Suburban Pines, simply because that is it's an inactive district, and the commission is directed to dissolve inactive districts. So we're giving them an opportunity. We have to give them a 1-year notice before we initiate dissolution. And usually special districts will say, oh, our bad, we need to do X, Y, Z. I've actually only ever dissolved 2 districts for being inactive. Usually the 1 year is sufficient for them to get their districts up and running. So that's why those were chosen, as opposed to all the others that we can choose from. And again, you're limited by your staff.
Well, it's pretty amazing the amount of workload you are proposing in these efforts. So I commend you for that. And hopefully, again, we don't scare Erica away, because we know Michelle works hard. So do you need action here?
I'm so sorry. I need to go through the budget.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. That would be helpful. Sorry.
That's also
They're combined here.
So our budget is going up a little bit this year, about $196,000 total expenses, and then we match the revenues. So the biggest source of our budget is the cities, the county, and the special districts. And so most of them, a few of the special districts, I think the RCD is their bill is going to be less expensive this year, but generally all of the invoices to our funding agencies will increase. And I know those numbers don't add up, and that's because they're rounded to the nearest dollar. We did double check them, triple check them. So the invoices to the different cities, as I mentioned, they are all going up. Roseville, as usual, just because by virtue of being the largest city, we'll see the largest increase there with the $39,000, and then Loomis, the smallest increase with $340. The special districts, I did not list all 37 because we would be cross-eyed, but I did list the top 6. It's always Placer County Water Agency, Tahoe City PUD. Those are always the top 2, and they pay the biggest percentage of our budget from the special districts. And again, total, it will be increasing $65,000 for the districts as a group. And then, of course, the county, they pay 1/3 of our budget, and again, the $65,000 increase. So the staff recommendation is to adopt or adopt with modifications the work plan and the budget. And again, we will be back with a final budget at our June meeting. So we can certainly make changes and edits, and you can make comments, as well as our funding agencies can provide comments to staff ahead of the final public hearing.
Okay, I'll look to the commissioners for any questions or comments on the budget portion.
Oh, I don't have any comments on budget.
Okay. And I want to go out to the public again in case there was any questions on the budget. We had questions on the work plan. And I'm not seeing any, and not seeing any online, so. Okay. Susan?
I would like to make a motion to approve the draft budget and the work plan with some modifications. Items 16 and 18 moving to moderate in terms of their priorities, and adding cemetery districts with a low priority. That was an intent to capture what I thought I heard people say.
And I would like to, since this was a public hearing, I'd like to actually make a comment before the vote, before the question, seconding the question. Was, in regards to the work plan, we have our strategic plan coming up. And I figure as part of that process, that strategic plan, or how we categorize things and what actually needs to be done in the county as a whole, will be feathered out, be discussed, and it'll probably be shaped into a different product than what we see as today. And some of the comments that were brought up by the public and others that may not be currently listed, I figured will be popped up and be addressed somehow in the nebulous of our total workload of what is expected of the Placer County LAFCO to bring things back into alignment and into a process where things could be programmatically addressed, like the MSRs by statute every few years, et cetera. So that process, it'll be a good process, and usually should expect how things are listed to be changed as we move forward. I think it's one of the products. But I'm glad to hear from people and bringing up other interests that were just not listed. It is not beyond us not looking at them. It's just that we just don't have a way of demonstrating them right now, of how to put in a larger basket of our workload. And with that, I'd like to second the motion on the table.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and Amy, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Alpine?
Yes.
Commissioner Landon?
Yes.
Commissioner Burris?
Yes.
Commissioner Mendoza?
Yes.
Commissioner Rohan?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
And Chair Gustafson.
Yes. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 7B, fee schedule update. I think you covered kind of some of those details in the budget.
Yes, thank you, Chair Gustafson. Really, the reason why this is brought forward now as opposed to back last June is that Erica, we're waiting for Erica to start. And so we are modifying the project allocation hours as well as the staff charge out rates. And then what we've discovered, I think this is the third time now that Amy and I, and now Erica as a group, have brought you the fee schedule, is every single year as we're processing more projects, we're learning from them. And so certainly with last fiscal, or the last year, we've noticed that we need to increase some of our staff hours to accommodate special meetings, requests for reconsiderations, requests for extensions. And we need to be able to capture those hours. So that's what you're seeing. And then also wanted to clarify one of the policies, the implementing policies, 6C, I believe, which states, if LAFCO adopts a recommendation or a condition of approval, and we have multiple agencies that are multi-county, and so I just wanted to clarify that the intent of the commission was if it had a recommendation for its staff and its work plan, et cetera, as opposed to maybe another LAFCO. And with that, those are the changes I have. If you see other edits or corrections, I'm happy to take them as well.
Thank you, Michelle. Commissioners, are there comments or questions? Commissioner Rohan.
I do have one. I'd like the staff and commission to look at page 30 in our packets. If you look at the category under other requests and charges, the proposed change, item number 4, in red, says request for project timeline extension $4,060 covers first 20 hours of staff time. I just wanted to clarify my understanding of it. It isn't actually, you don't pay to get a request. You make a request for an extension, and if it's granted,
Oh, yes.
it's $4,060.
Right, it's because if your request was denied, then we're not spending any staff time.
And additionally, if someone comes back and asks for an extension, is it actually $4,060 for up to 20 hours? If it's 10 hours, is it less?
Again, it's hard to tell without seeing the project, and so we're trying to capture a standard project. There are some projects that are just going to take more time. And so we try to look at what is typical. And so it would be difficult to capture every single minute, but we think this is, this will capture most of our projects, right? There's going to be some outliers, of course. I guess where this came from was the Meeks Bay, North Tahoe. It's all of these projects, right? That have, the commission has a policy to close a project if there's no changes for 1 year. We close the proposal, and so that's what our standard hours capture. Well, what we're finding is that we have these agencies that are coming to us, we need more time, and so that's what's driving those hours, but we can certainly amend it if you feel that.
Well, if a second extension was granted and it only took 15 hours or 5 hours, would you charge $4,060?
No, these are estimates, and I think one of the policies allows the executive officer some leeway. So these are based on, again, what we anticipate to be a standard project. Now, if you have, just some projects, that are taking multiple public hearings, protest hearings, elections, it's difficult for us to anticipate. And then likewise, if it's, gosh, I can't imagine this, but if it's a one-page staff report, obviously that doesn't take me 20 hours to write. So we try and capture what's normal.
Okay. All right, then my suggestion would be to just eliminate request for and just have it say project time extension.
Maybe add if approved or estimate and like an asterisk estimate.
So I'm sorry, I didn't hear that clearly, I think. So just put project time extension, is that right? Okay.
That was my suggestion. I think that Tracy.
Okay.
I just wanted to piggyback on what Commissioner Rohan was saying, because she did bring up a good point, and as did you, that this is just an estimate. You can't predict all the time what these are gonna take. So do we want to add in there somewhere at the end, now that we took out requests for, if approved, or maybe just put like an asterisk EST? I mean, because as I look through this, I mean, we could put that at the bottom of the next 2 pages, just an asterisk with estimate, because there's a lot of estimates within here.
Yes, there
Which
are a
would give
lot.
you the latitude that you said, as the executive officer, have that discretion to do that. So I think if the public was looking at it, that would kind of flow into what your ability, to make those changes would be.
Sure, maybe we can, instead of an asterisk, like covers the first, or approximately 20 hours of staff time.
Yeah, sure. I think you get the intent.
Right.
Going.
So project time extension, $4,060 covers approximately 20 hours of staff time. How does that sound?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cleans it up.
Okay.
If I may, Chair Gustafson?
Yes.
I think it's important to clarify, or for the commission and staff to clarify, with respect, for instance, to the issue that Commissioner Rohan mentioned. The way I would read this is when someone submits a request for a project time extension, they need to submit that fee at that time. It's not contingent upon whether it's granted or denied, because staff time is going to be spent on that regardless of what the commission's ultimate action is.
Okay.
So if that's not what's going on here, we would need to clarify that. Likewise, after Commissioner Rohan raised this issue, I went back through this schedule, and there isn't anything in here that I saw, reviewing it again over the last few minutes, that indicates that there's any refund if, for instance, it only takes 10 hours to process a request for time extension, that the applicant would get a refund.
Can you just
So if that's what the commission's intent would be, then we'd want to clarify the schedule to state that.
Can you just put the hourly rate? Could you just say, and then maybe that eliminates the need for any, up to 20 hours. If you just say it's $235 an hour, and then however many hours it takes is how much it costs, can you do?
Sure.
Yes.
Yes, because that's already the LAFCO staff rate, so.
I think it is. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Walker.
But thank you. Then I would say that usually, the typical process is the applicant will pay a deposit up front.
Yes.
And obviously, it's in LAFCO's interest to get paid up front. Even if it's in the form of a deposit, it's better to be in the position, of course, of refunding an overpayment than trying to track down an underpayment. So you could have the ultimate fee be based on actual time, but on some of these, but that you would still require a certain deposit based on the expectation of a typical request for an extension or other request, and have that paid up front, subject to refund at the end.
I noticed that on other jurisdictional charges, it says changes, but I think you mean, or maybe changes, you have said there's a deposit, right?
Yes.
For LAFCO, staff time and materials, starting with a deposit that they work against?
Yes.
So on these, would the same, I think what we're asking is, would the same apply to these other areas?
I think that we can make that clarification, and I can work with legal counsel because I think that was the intent. Certainly, for example, let's just take a district formation. It depends, right? Are you forming a single function district, or are you forming a district with multiple powers and that is, in a vast geographical area? And so, I think we can say that this is a deposit, and of course, if it takes 2 hours or it takes 200 hours, we can adjust.
Well, it does in those other three. I think it was under other requests and charges, you crossed out initial deposit. Well, it does say a deposit on B. So those first three items seem to have deposits called for. I know we're getting into.
Okay, what if we?
Maybe clean this up and bring it back? Does that make sense?
Yes, I can do that.
Versus us trying to wordsmith it here?
Moving on.
Yeah, thank you. I can do that.
I think we got the.
Okay. Commissioner Stevens, you had a comment?
I just really like getting money up front, even if it's a deposit. Make people think about what they are asking.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Correct. Thank you.
Yeah, I just like to say, just clarify what's a deposit and what's the background of what makes up the deposit. The deposit amount is some of the red line stuff in here. That's the reasoning behind the amount requested for deposit.
Okay.
Right.
Yes,
So that's like Yeah, clean it up and bring it back to us.
Okay, I can, so we'll just continue this item to the next. Michael, I just want to make sure, because this was a publicly noticed item, so if we schedule to a set time, a date certain, right, we won't have to notice?
That would be the preference. If the commission today continues this item to a date certain, then you will not have to renotice it.
Okay, what's our next meeting?
Okay. Well, first, I'd like to get public comment too, so, yes, go ahead.
But I think it's helpful to get an answer to this for the public. I think we need to know whether or not there's going to be a refund if it doesn't take the total deposit hours.
Yes, we can add,
Yes.
we can add to our implementing policies.
Thank you, Cindy.
Okay. So you can address this when you bring it back?
Yes, at the next meeting.
At the next meeting, and what's the date of that?
Hang on, it's on my slides.
I apologize, I don't know, but I want to put it on the public record.
No, Wednesday, May 8th, 2024.
Okay. But with that, we still need to go out and offer public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to address this item on our fee schedule update? I'm not seeing any in the room. Are there any online who would like to address this item? Okay. Mr. Walker, would you like a motion to that effect to bring this back for Wednesday, May 8th?
Yes, Chair.
Could I have that motion?
So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion and second to bring this fee schedule update with the directed changes back to the meeting Wednesday, May 8th, 2024. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Alpine?
Yes.
Commissioner Landon?
Yes.
Commissioner Burris?
She had to leave.
Oh, okay.
She had city council.
All right. Commissioner Mendoza?
Yes.
Commissioner Rohan?
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
And Chair Gustafson?
Yes.
I think you need to,
Sorry.
sorry, alternate Commissioner Nicely.
Nicely.
That's right, City. Commissioner Nisley?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then we're going to move on. Yes?
Yeah, yeah.
We're jumping around the agenda. We will now go to item 8B, Commissioner Appointments Update.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask Megan Wood from the Board of Supervisors, who is the clerk also to the City Selection Commission, or City Selection Committee, as well as our own clerk, and Amy Engel, who is the clerk for the Special District Election Committee, or Selection Committee. So they will provide the presentations. Do you want the?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning, or good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners. Megan Wood. I am the clerk of the board for Placer County, also the clerk of the board for the City Selection Committee, which appoints to LAFCO and a few other committees as well. Just for the record, the City Selection Committee is made up of the mayors of each city, so it does rotate typically each year. Roseville does a very nice one for me where I get you guys for 2 years. That's always appreciated. So this year, when we looked at the appointments, there was a request that came in from the chair of City Selection to look at how we appoint LAFCO. So historically, this has been the way that we've handled the appointments. It was in alphabetical order. We had 2 seats with 4-year primary terms, and then an alternate with a 2-year term. And the alternate would rotate up into the seats, as you can see, the 2 seats staggered. The challenge that we ran into this year, as you know, most of the annexations are happening on the west side of the county, and we had all of the cities that were represented on LAFCO were not in the area where annexations were occurring. The other thing that was happening is, as you saw from the slides Michelle presented earlier, we were not fairly represented through annexation, geographic, or through what is paid in LAFCO fees. So I was requested to look at this and see what the best split would be. There wasn't really an easy way to do it, so what we came up with was a geographic split. So this ensures that the county is represented, the cities are represented throughout the county equally. So while annexations may be mostly happening on the west side, that doesn't not mean that they don't affect the other cities, and that the other cities' say isn't just equally as important as the city where the annexation might be happening. So this ensures that we get both of those. We get the say of the cities that will be experiencing annexations along with the says of the cities that are affected by annexations occurring in other cities. With that, we did add a alternate seat. Because the split was done to be geographically representative, we felt that having a shared alternate seat didn't work for this. So we added that second alternate seat that allows and ensures that we stay geographic, whether our primary representative is there or not. So that's the gist of that. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Megan. Are there questions for Megan? Yes, Commissioner Rohan.
So this would stay in place until a city select committee changes it?
Yes, so this is in place until a request from city selection is made for a change to that. So as you know, city selection meets yearly. They can call a special meeting at any time. That was, in all honesty, that was how this came about, was through the call of a special meeting. So it is only in place until a request for change is made. I will say the last rotation was in place for over 20 years.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, I don't anticipate that would happen, or history would say that won't happen soon, but it could, yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Thank you, Megan. And then I would ask if there's any public comment on this item. I'm not.
Okay, and right.
Oh, we're going to hear from special districts now. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
let's just give Amy like 20, 30 seconds.
Oh, Amy, I'm sorry.
She gets 2 jobs today. Most of the time she has 200 jobs, let's be honest. Here, sorry. Where did it go?
Yeah, but where did it go?
Oh,
Okay. So anticipating the 2 seats on LAFCO that are occupied by special districts, on January 17th, we sent out nominations requests to all the 37 districts, and with a due date of February 22nd. We received back, I don't know why they're not,
Oh, I think you have to push it again.
I think that goes to the,
No, it's like,
there you
sorry, we have a new clicker.
Okay. So we received on February 22nd 7 nominations to the regular seat and 6 to the alternate seat. We then on February 27th sent out ballot packets, which included ballots, instructions, and a 1-page statement of qualifications to all the special districts. On March 22nd, I sent a reminder to all the special districts that it's
like multiple. There you go.
there it goes, okay, to all the special districts. There we go. So far, we have received enough ballots to reach the quorum. We needed 19. We've received 23. The remaining ballots are due by April 26th. So we have 13 ballots still out. We're not counting Suburban Pines. So there we go.
Yeah, we don't anticipate Suburban Pines to meet.
Is there any questions?
Any questions for Amy?
Okay.
Thank you, and
Thank
sorry to almost miss you on that.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Megan. They did a fantastic job. There is so much work involved in seating LAFCO commissioners. It sounds simple, but there's a lot to the law and the nuances, and it's just, I really appreciate their help. So thank you.
So we anticipate new seats at the May meeting, is that right? Our new
Yes, it's,
representatives?
the official changeover is the first Monday in May, and so at that time, we'll have cities, the city of Lincoln and the city of Rockland, and Commissioner Mendonça will no longer be seated. And then, I know, I'm sorry. And then the special districts, the outcome of that election will be finalized by our May 10th meeting.
Okay. Great, and there's no action required, it was just a report to us.
Yes, thank you, because the new seats, we'll be seeing the new faces at the next meeting.
Great, thank you. Finally, I think we're getting to the item that so many people are here for. I'm sorry to keep you waiting, but we're now on to item 8C, the Municipal Service Review Study and Sphere of Influence Update of Fire Agencies in Western Placer County. Michelle.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to back up a little bit because, as you can see by the project numbers, these projects that have been ongoing for a while, and so we need to step back and go through the process a little bit. So back in 2022, the Commission initiated a service review for the fire EMS dispatch study. And you may recall that the last service review that was completed for Placer LAFCO was in 2017, and it had the 2014 information. It took 3 years to get to the Commission, number one. Number two, when it got to the Commission did not adopt the study, and so did not move forward with sphere updates. In fact, they just accepted the study. So none of the recommendations in the report were adopted. And so we had projects that we knew were coming, and again, like the following month, we had a reorganization application from Placer Hills and Newcastle. So the Commission initiated the service review in the hopes of having a current study as well as a current sphere for all these fire agencies that are coming forward with applications. So as I mentioned, the first reorganization shortly after the fire study was the contract was adopted was Placer Hills and Newcastle's. They came forward with an application, and then about 2 weeks later, I issued an incomplete application letter. So the letter, which I believe we handed out to you, and it was submitted, or it was sent to the two agencies, but also our affected agencies and other interested agencies. You can imagine, because they're in the middle of Placer County, there's a number of special districts, the county, the cities that are being affected by these projects. So the list of reasons why I gave them an incomplete project, the typical, we need a service review, we need a sphere of influence, we need financial analysis, we need your budgets, we need projections, we need to see what it looks like if the districts combine, if the districts don't combine. We need to look at the services, whether or not the services will improve, et cetera. So those are some of our other considerations. And again, the Rev and Tax Code 99 process, which is, it goes through the Placer County Board of Supervisors, but first it has to go through the assessor, then the auditor, and then it goes through the Board of Supervisors, and then of course our processing fee. So those are the reasons why I issued the incomplete application. Because I cannot take an incomplete application to your board or to your commission until we check off all those things. And that's in statute, that's in our policy, but it's also more importantly in statute. So why are we looking at all of these services and financial information? Well, it's really, it comes down to some of the responsibilities of LAFCO, what we're tasked with from state law. I just pulled a quote right off the 56001, which is almost the opening statement of the CKH guide, which is the legislature also finds that, again, this isn't the first one, so there's a list above this. Responsibility should be given to the agency or agencies that can best provide governmental services. So we need to look at the impacts, not just to these two agencies, but also the surrounding agencies, which is the purpose of for us noticing and notifying and requesting comments from these agencies, because they have a big stake in these projects as well. So again, the Placer Hills Fire Protection District, you see that in yellow, and then you see Newcastle in green. And in between, you have several agencies, City of Auburn, the Placer County, you have other special districts, you have zones of benefits that are within CSA 28 that are being affected. So where we are with this process for, so there's two projects, right? So the district reorganization between those two agencies is on the left in the blue. Again, that's the phase where we're gathering information, we're gathering the plan for service, the service review, the fiscal analysis, the rev and tax code negotiations. That's all occurring in that blue before it gets to the LAFCO meeting, before it gets to the voters, before it goes to an election. And so that's where we are with that process. Now, with the EMS fire dispatch study, I did speak to the consultant earlier today, and he's on the line. I see him. And he anticipates that he will have a draft to the commission in June. The consulting team, they were here for about a couple of weeks in the fall, interviewing, they were doing their site visits, etc. So that process is moving forward. Again, we have a number of special districts, cities, although the cities are special, but a number of agencies that are in that service review. So it does take longer than, say, a city of Rockland, which we have, a draft coming within 6 months. So that's where that is at. So as I mentioned, we have a draft coming to that will be available to the public for their comment, their review, and also for the commission. But ahead of that, staff does receive an admin draft, and that's and as well as the special districts and the cities, and that's really to make edits of errors. Right, if we see something that, oh gosh, it says you have 20 personnel, and in reality we have 30, right? So it's a, simple typographical errors and something that maybe we need some further clarity on. So I am receiving the different chapters, and so the first few have come to staff, including the Penryn Fire Protection District, in which there's a lot of references to the Joint Operations Agreement, as well as the Penryn Placer Hills Agreement, simply because that's the chapter that I received. And so as part of that, I was speaking with their fire chief, as I mentioned in my letter, and he noted that, it's not just our 4 agencies, it's also Auburn, which was news to me. So that is why I requested additional information. And then you'll see in my staff report, an explanation of why the fire contract, again, because of the law changed in effective January 1st, 2017, we are required to review fire contracts. And the way that this Joint Operations Agreement was written, it indicates that it could be a contract that is subject to LAFCO purview and review and approval. So So that's my staff report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, do you have any questions for Michelle?
Not right now.
Okay. All right, well, I know we have some speaker cards. I can go in the order I have them sitting in front of me, or you can decide for yourselves what order makes the most sense for you.
I will step up first. I'm being
Okay.
nodded to come up first. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Lindsay Moore. I'm legal counsel for the Placer Hills Fire Protection District as well as the Penryn Fire Protection District. I'm here to speak on the two items or requests for information, and then there are two recommendations or requests coming from staff in the staff report. So that's where my comments are going to focus. I think it's important first just to, I want to reiterate some of what I think some communications that have already come to you. I know that the union had drafted a letter and made a request that it get to you. They cannot be here, so I just want to make sure that I also reflect that they've made the request that we share that information as well. But I think what's important here is looking at Government Code Section 56134 and what it defines as a fire protection contract. And the definition squarely is an agreement for the exercise of new or extended fire protection services. And it is our position, and I think we provided that in the letter, that neither the JOA or the agreement between Penryn and Placer Hills is new or extended. None of the agencies have given up any of their responsibilities for the services that they provide. And then more specifically, the contract between Penryn and Placer Hills, what we have is not the fire chief from Placer Hills going and running a fire department, but rather he's serving as the fire chief under the direction of that board. We do not have a transfer of any authority that is happening here. And under those circumstances, neither of those two agreements would actually fall under 56314, which then would require the submission to the Commission and LAFCO for review and approval. I also want to just note, too, I know that the recommendation for item 1 doesn't necessarily suggest that that JOA needs to come to LAFCO, but the second does say if we intend to renew the contract between Penryn and Placer Hills. And I just want to draw attention to the fact that this has been a practice in place for quite some time, and that if this directive is in fact given, which my request is that it is not, because this isn't covered by 56134, but that if that directive is given, that it would not stall out or put a stop to the current arrangements that are in place such that we cannot continue to provide the same level of service to the communities, which both sets of these agreements were not, as I said, to transfer any type of authority or any jurisdictional boundaries, but to better provide service through mutual aid and mutual work to the communities. And I think that we've seen that that has been evident since the inception of these agreements. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. Chief, you're getting up next.
Slowly, but I'll get up. Good afternoon, Supervisor, Commission. I'm Ian Gow. I'm the Fire Chief of Placer Hills Fire Department, Penryn Fire Department, and Newcastle Fire Department. I've been a Fire Chief for Placer Hills for a long time. I retired in 2017 after 30-odd years. And they asked me to come back in 2017 just for a short period of time, work on a few projects.
Boy, how the years fly.
I can't believe I fell for that. But my mandate, above and beyond being the fire chief, is to keep our 3 fire districts, Placer Hills, Newcastle, and Penryn, functioning. And more importantly, almost, is to keep people in every seat, so we never have to brown out a firehouse. As you can imagine, if those districts fail, or if we have to brown out a station for a day even, a shift even, people will die and we'll lose property. So this is a big deal to us. I've been working with the county, Supervisor Holmes and Supervisor Gustafson for a long time on fire department issues. And I really appreciate Michelle's help in getting us going in the LAFCO process for the merger between Placer Hills and Newcastle. And we're well on the way to getting that application complete. Obviously, we're waiting for the Municipal Services Review to be done. But every LAFCO study, every MSR, every county study shows that the districts need to merge into one, and we need better funding. Well, every district has gone back to the public for better funding. We've achieved that, and we're now working slowly through our process to get merged into one large district. But in the interim, these departments are going to fail. So we've enacted a couple of things to keep us from failing. One, we call it the JOA, Joint Operating Agreement, and that's all the districts, including the city of Auburn. We have an agreement. If we have a sick call or we can't fill a seat in our Meadow Vista station, an employee from one of the other departments could come fill that seat. Plain and simple. We cross-train. We use this occasionally, but we've never had to brown out a station since we've been doing this, and that's critical. The second thing we're doing is our services agreement, and we have an agreement between Placer Hills and Penryn to provide administrative services. We also have one between Placer Hills and Newcastle to do the same thing. We've been doing Newcastle for 8 years, Penryn for 3 years, flawlessly. I work for 3 separate boards. You think you have it rough working for one. I got 3. But we don't believe that either of these fall under your jurisdiction, but we want to be cooperative and work with you. We've been working with Michelle for a number of years on this project. So we appreciate your help and support. We know we're going to come back before you for our reorganization, so any help you can give us, we'd be grateful.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And then Cheryl? Yes. And then I'll open it up to anyone else who's needs to address
Thanks,
it.
Commission members. My name is Cheryl Hotelian. I am the chair of the Penryn Fire Board. I just want to make it clear, Chief Gow and Ms. Moore already stated that we don't believe that the contract or the JOA are subject due to this government code to LAFCO review and approval and the process that LAFCO would define for that. Just another piece of information to go along with that. At no time does the Penryn Fire Board transfer responsibility for delivery of the fire services to anyone other than Penryn. When Chief Gow is providing services or his battalion chiefs are providing services, they're providing those under the policies and procedures of the Penryn Fire Department as stated in our contract. So services are being provided to Penryn Fire District under the Penryn Fire District policies and procedures, regardless of who is providing those services, under our direct responsibility. In the same manner, the joint operating agreement is a staffing model that allows for staff to provide services when our own staff cannot make those demands. We have 6 full-time professional firefighters on staff in Penryn. We run 1 station. While we try to cover our open shifts, whether sickness or illness, and we've done a really good job of doing that. If you look historically of how many times we've had to utilize the JOA to bring staffing in. Again, when staffing come in from one of our partners in the JOA, they are operating under the policies and procedures of Penryn. We are not transferring responsibility. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarifications on these. Are there other members of the public who would like to address the commission on this item? You're just here for entertainment this afternoon? We can have a lot of fun here sometimes. No other comments here in the room. Any comments online from the public? Please raise your hand. Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Michelini.
Good afternoon, Commission. John Michelini, I'm a Board of Director with the Forest Hill Fire Protection District, and I just want to reiterate some of the comments that were made earlier by Chief Gow. The Forest Hill Fire Protection District is not a party to the service agreement between Penryn and Newcastle Fire Districts, but we are an enthusiastic participant in the joint operating agreement, which allows us to intermittently and on a short-term basis share personnel, as has been described, when openings occur and it can't be filled by the primary agency. I too believe that the JOA is distinctly different than the description in the California Government Code requiring LAFCO's approval. Obviously, we wouldn't run against having LAFCO review it. I would say when you read that document, it's probably a little bit wider in its language than it needs to be. Much of the language, which came from a boilerplate out of Nevada County, where a JOA has been in process there successfully for, I'd say, more than a decade now, that it covers more things than it needs to, and maybe we could work on clarifying the language so it doesn't appear to be a wide-ranging document and stick to the narrow scope that we actually utilize the document. This is a crucial document to the safety and security of people who live in Placer County and the unincorporated areas. This document that offers the opportunity for us to maintain proper staffing covers not only the Penryn, Newcastle, Placer Hills District, but Forest Hill and the city of Auburn. So we all rely on it, much like we rely on each other to assist at mutual aid and automatic aids where we share personnel at scenes of emergencies. This is a staffing agreement, and it's essential for us to keep our stations staffed.
Thank you so much. Any other comments from the public? I'm not seeing any other hands raised. I'll bring it back to the commission.
I have a couple questions. I'm really confused, honestly, trying to wrap my head around it. Okay, so one of my questions is Auburn, and I guess maybe I'll direct this to you, Michelle, but then if there's someone else who can answer, it's fine. Is Auburn currently included in the JOA, or is that a new inclusion?
Yes, the JOA has been in effect since 2018, post SB 239. So of course so that's one of the checklists, right, as you're going through. So they were not an original participant, but they are now, according to, well, that's weird. According to the latest version of the JOA we received.
Okay, and so then I guess my question for legal counsel, I guess, would be, is the interpretation then that since Auburn came in 2022, they should have fallen under that statute and come to LAFCO at that time, but it didn't happen?
Not precisely. As the staff report says, the JOA could be interpreted to allow for a transfer of responsibility among the fire districts, but as one of the public speakers indicated earlier, it does not necessarily require that, which is why staff has recommended that data be provided to see how the JOA is actually being performed on the ground, so to speak. The cities joining the JOA didn't trigger this review by LAFCO or this analysis. Mm-hmm. It was already in process before staff learned of the cities joining into the JOA.
Okay, and then I have another question, I think, for maybe you, Chief Gal. So you answer to the Penryn or South. Which board do you answer to? Just so I can clarify.
All three.
Okay, so you do answer to all three.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're getting direction from all three.
Independently, yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I
Yes, ma'am.
understood that too. Okay, I think that's my only questions for right now.
Any other commissioner comments or questions?
I appreciated Jacqueline questions. They were mine too. Thank
Okay.
you.
Supervisor Holmes, I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate it. I have quite a background in fire service. The issue I have is that, first of all, I don't know exactly how this organization is going to work. And I need more clarification so I understand who's doing what. If someone is short in Newcastle, where does someone come from Placer Hills, et cetera. And the distance between the two, Newcastle and Placer Hills is what, 12, 13 miles? And when they go on a call to either one, they have go through Station 10, Station 180, and Station 182 will respond to Newcastle. And so I would just need more clarification about how this exactly is going to work, and I don't see that. And so I think that's my concern.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly staff's concern. Without the dispatch information and who's providing what services where, to ensure that we have closest resource, closest agency responding to these emergency services as quickly as possible. Without that, we don't really know, which is why staff's recommendation is not for the four districts plus the city to come back with an application, but show us the dispatch information that is existing, that right? It's existing information. We're not asking you to create new information.
But could I clarify, if I could clarify in your staff recommendations, Michelle, first you just asked for the information so that you could consider whether this is an impact or not.
Right,
correct?
for the first
Right.
JOA.
But then the second one, which I think is driving concern, is you're saying that that if they intend to extend the term of the Penryn-Placer Hills agreement, which is expected to expire on June 30th, 2024, that we direct them to submit an application for approval of the agreement. And yet they're suggesting they are not subject to this, and it sounds as if it's not about the response times right now. The JOA is just about staffing the various stations, not about who's responding.
Right, and I apologize, there are two areas. I did not realize that there were two separate agreements. Again, this was all
Okay.
news to me. And so when it came, so it was under my one request, which is why they're combined. But yes, you're absolutely right. These are two separate issues. And so the Penryn-Placer Hills agreement is covered in the staff report on page 64. So it's the bottom half of the analysis, right? The top is the JOA, and then the bottom is or like right in the middle if you cut the page in half. And that's where the way that it reads is that it transfers, again, as I state there, 100% of the responsibility from one agency to another. So 100%. There is no, as opposed to fewer than 25%.
Okay.
So that's why, again, that's why it's a different part of that definition. If you go, so there's two, right? So there's two under 56134, the fire protection contract definition falls
Right.
under whether or not it's 25% or transfer of responsibility for providing services in more than 25% of the area within the jurisdictional boundaries of any public agency affected by the contract or agreement, or, right, because it's either or changes the employment status of more than 25% of the employees of any public agencies affected by the contract or agreement. Again, I'm not arguing B. It's the A that we are not so sure about for the JOA, and the way that it's worded in the services agreement. It certainly seems to apply, the A part of the definition seems to apply. And again, it's an or. It doesn't have to be both.
And could that language be clarified in order to satisfy the concerns? Right?
Michael,
I mean, the contract between the two, the JOA, I think the language could probably be addressed in a modification that wouldn't require a LAFCO application. Potentially, I don't know, but I'm just,
Well,
Well,
Michael?
if I may, Chair, again, to clarify, there are two different agreements before the commission today. There is the JOA that is an agreement among 4 fire protection districts and a city. And it's that agreement that is the subject of the staff's recommendation number 1. There's a second agreement that's solely between the Penryn and Placer Hills Fire Protection districts. And that is what is the subject of staff recommendation number 2. And with respect to staff recommendation number 2, it could be that as these 2 districts, if as indicated they intend to renew this, they could clarify in the language what actually is happening on the ground. Because the section I would point the commission to that can be read as transferring 100% of the responsibility is, I'll see if I can find the page number in the packet to correspond with what I'm looking at. So bear with me here. I'm almost there. Okay, it would be on page 107 of your packet. And this is from that second agreement I mentioned between Penryn and Placer Hills Fire Protection Districts. If you look at Roman numeral 2, subparagraph C1, it says the agreement includes day-to-day staffing to keep Station 38 open 24/7. And the thrust of this agreement is that Placer Hills is providing services to Penryn. So that could be read as saying Placer Hills will be responsible for the day-to-day staffing of Station 38, and it's my understanding that's the sole fire station in the Penryn Fire Protection District. So just reading that language, that could be interpreted to say now Placer Hills is 100% responsible for the operation of that fire station. Now, maybe again on the ground, and based on what one of your public speakers said earlier, that's not what's actually happening. But that section could be read to indicate there is that transfer of 100% of the responsibility of the operation of that station to Placer Hills.
okay. Thank you for, I think, that clarification. Sir, you wanted to speak, I think?
Yeah, please.
And I'd welcome your comments. Thank you.
I'm Lawrence Betancourt, Director in Newcastle Fire Protection District, and a retired Placer County Fire Chief as well. I want to direct towards Supervisor Holmes. Both these agreements are for administrative services between Penryn, Newcastle, and Placer Hills. All Western Slope Placer County fire agencies are signatory to the closest resource agreement for over 20 years. And that has not changed. So as far as the closest engine responding to emergencies, that is in the closest resource agreement, which is signatory by all agencies, cities, every CAL FIRE, you name it. Everybody is signatory to that agreement. Just so that the LAFCO knows as far as what engines go on calls, it's the closest resource. And that has not changed.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Commissioner, may I
Yes.
have just one more moment? I think that coming from my previous
Yes,
comment.
go ahead and
with
come up,
regards-
yeah.
Thank you. Lindsay Moore, legal counsel, as previously identified, and I'll make this quick. I know I took almost all of my time before. But I suppose our request would be, rather than giving the directive, to permit us to work cooperatively with Michelle and possibly Mr. Walker to make those revisions, because I believe, and maybe from what we have shared today, that had this communication happen beforehand, maybe this directive would have not even been necessary, because the intent was never for any of these agencies to transfer any responsibility or to transfer any of their territory or jurisdiction. So my hope would be that we could work together and that we can make revisions to make sure that that concern can be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have comments, Josh?
Oh, yeah, oh,
Okay. John, you're back up with your hand raised?
Yeah, I think, again, that the confusion on this presentation is we're presenting two distinctly different documents in the same docket, and that makes it even hard for me to understand what's happening. I apologize, I can't be there in person. But as far as the data that's been requested, reference to the JOA, the type of data that's been requested is not applicable to the JOA. It would not give any indication of use, frequency of use, effectiveness of use, cost. It would not cover any of those things. So what I would suggest is if we're going to take the JOA and put it aside as not meeting the intent of LAFCO review, that's fine. If it's going to stay as something that is in question, I think that we should schedule a meeting with LAFCO staff, with representatives of all the membership agencies, so that we can discuss what data points would illustrate the effectiveness of that document and its community benefit. Because as it sits right now, the list of requested data points, there's no way to illustrate it through those data points.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm just reading the data points you requested, and it seems like that would get to it, but I don't want to debate. I don't think the commission should be debating that now, and I'd like to honor the request to maybe direct our staff to meet with the agencies and try to get some more clarification on both of these documents. I think it is important, just for all of you that are in the service, and many of you know my son is a firefighter, I think it's really the most important issue I hear out in the community is response times. And so you all know that. Minutes mean lives. We all know that. We know most of your calls are medical in nature, and we need to save lives. And so I think staff is just trying to make sure that whatever we're doing as we consider these reorganizations, that we're looking first and foremost at protecting public health and safety. And I know you do that every single day, around the clock, and we just want to make sure we have that data. I don't feel, at least as one commissioner, that with the discussion, Michelle and Michael, that we do need some clarification and on what the interpretation of that second document is, and what would be the correct approach, what kind of information we can get on number one as we move to the MSR, right?
Right.
And similar, this is similar to, I know we're at the end now of finally North Tahoe merging with Meeks Bay, but they were operating under a similar agreement for a better part of 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, and we do have the service review, and we have dispatch for our cities covered. We have Rockland, Lincoln, and Roseville, because they have their own PSAPs. So we do have that study. We don't have the middle Placer County, so that's maybe something we can consider. Staff can come back with expanding the scope of our existing study to look at that and who's responding where, and et cetera.
So this way I was looking at it, looks like we have, even according to some of the testimony or some of the comments, that these agreements were quite large. They were boilerplate, they were taken, but the true intent looks like they were administrative sharing agreements more than response agreements and authorities and other type of things reporting to emergency, but rather just finding staff when you're shorthanded to cover an engine, so you wouldn't end up with closing things out. And if that's the case, it's still, I don't know if that still comes to LAFCO purview or not, but it seems like either way, those agreements should be streamlined a little bit and be reviewed and maybe reauthored to where they clearly are administrative personnel sharing guidelines, would probably be clear for everybody. I still think that there's another point that was just asked in that staff recommendation is with the overall Western MSR that's currently happening, some of that information is still what we're looking for, and those response times and the other things of that nature that staff has requested, LAFCO's requested, would be greatly appreciated to having that information come in. I know we're working on it. Many of these stations are small departments. That's why you have an administrative sharing agreement in the first place. But I think that once we're able to get some of that information, it will also help with some of the larger things that are getting confused here with the mergers and other wishes of the boards in the smaller special districts that will need that data sets. Would be appreciated if that information starts coming in. But as speaking to the administrative aspect of sharing resources as personnel or having someone call, I think it would be helpful for all agencies involved here if we could just streamline those JOAs and clarify.
Supervisor Holmes?
Yeah, I just want to say that I agree with those comments. It's important. I understand what we're trying to do here. I worked with both Penryn and Newcastle to get ballot measures passed into Placer Hills to some extent. So I care about our special districts. But if we're going to do something, I want to make sure we do it right. And so we don't have any issues coming down the road, because you've got one fire chief, but 15 board members. You know, it's going to be difficult to manage all that. And I commend you for that challenge. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Landon?
I don't know what the implications are of including this area in the MSR that we are doing, and what that would mean for delaying it, or how much more that would cost. I don't know any of that information.
Right, and again, this is fairly new information, so I can certainly bring that back, because we've already, that's a separate section of the service review, and it was specific to our larger cities, Rockland, Roseville, Lincoln. So we did not look at the mid-Placer County. So that's certainly, I can talk to the consultant. Obviously, that is a new scope, and I have no interest in delaying our service review, which is 2 years in the making. But if this is something, again, they are experts. You heard earlier from Sean Scully from the city manager. They hired AP Triton to do the standard of cover, the master plan. About a month ago, I was at the South Placer where they heard their draft master plan from AP Triton. So this is something they do on a regular basis. My point is that we can see how much that is as a separate item and what that entails, so that we don't slow down our current service review.
Yeah, that would personally, I would be interested in at least knowing that information, and then if, we all determine that it's not worth it, or it's, too much or whatever, it might be helpful to at least.
Madam Chair, I was just thinking, the Placer Hills and Newcastle already have an application in, correct?
Yes, they do.
So it may not have to reevaluate the whole Western plan, but it's still information needed in their application, correct?
Yes.
Per se. So maybe that's where it folds in without delaying our other MSR right now. But just separate these, the JOA as administrative agreement from their application, and still have the request for information on their incomplete application on this time, I think satiates some of these issues.
That's actually a great idea, because the plan for providing services, which is a separate document that's required from the districts, would cover, right, the impacts to this little tight group of, of the 4 plus the city, and a little bit of Placer County, because you have CSA 28 running all along with several zones, so we can certainly tighten that field.
Yeah, and I think that would be my suggestion to the board. We'll keep the other MSR running like it is. There's an application already in this area. They can request for the more detailed information, and have their staff and ours clarify the administrative agreement, the administrative or personnel sharing agreement. So, and then whether it has to comply with come back to us or not, that could all be detailed. But then the more detailed call for service information could be folded in their current application.
Okay. No, that's sounds very reasonable.
Okay. I think we've heard a lot of public comment, unless there's any other public comment on this item. So would you like a motion, or is direction given?
Direction, please.
Okay.
But I think,
I figured,
yeah.
Director,
I think
okay,
So is
gotcha,
that-
I'm serious.
we have you on video, we'll rewind.
Yeah, okay, yeah, so if you'd like me to put it in a direction that staff work with Placer Hills, Penryn, and Newcastle, and the JOA, of clarifying that to be a truly administrative JOA, answer the question, does it have to come back for that JOA? If it's administrative or not, have to come to our review. And the second part two, would be the detailed call for service information as requested by staff be folded into the study of the current application from Placer Hills and Newcastle's reorganization application.
Job. And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, then Amy, I'd ask you to call the roll.
All right, Commissioner Alpine,
Yes.
Commissioner Landon,
Yes.
Commissioner Mendonça,
Yes.
Commissioner Rohan,
Yes.
Commissioner Stevens is gone, Commissioner Carl. And Commissioner Nicely.
Yes.
Gotta turn that off, I'm laughing.
And I vote yes.
And Chair Gustus. Sorry.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that, and we have, I closed up my book before I looked at the rest of my agenda. Correspondence?
Oh, thank you. I just really quick, the annual omnibus bill is included in your packet, and it is to clarify that that special districts, new special districts who do not want a portion of the ad valorem, the 1%, do not have to go through the Rev and Tax Code 99 process like a city when they are incorporating, if they choose. Again, that would be up to the desire of the district that is forming. So that's the omnibus bill from Cal LAFCO. And then the second item, again, it's also sponsored by Cal LAFCO. This is left over from last year. We did find support from Senator Cortese. So I don't have a guide with me, but the Cortese, Knox, Hertzberg, that's his dad. So you're probably used to seeing the Cortese from the Assembly side. His son is from the Senator side, but he is sponsoring or authoring that legislation that Cal LAFCO is sponsoring. So that is not new. That's just left over from the last year. So that's it for correspondence, unless you have any questions.
Any questions, commissioners? Okay. And then finally, we'll go to commissioner comments. Are there additional comments from the commission?
It's late. And we have a strategic plan process coming up. And it probably would be better to have a more full dialogue on this topic.
And prioritize those policies. I think that will be really helpful so that we get to the most important, in the priority order. Okay?
I'm just still really happy that we passed our general plan in Loomis 4.5 years later, so I just want to leave with that.
Thank you. And the county's just starting our general plans, so.
And Auburn too.
Yes.
And I'd like to make a comment. I'd like to thank Michelle and Amy for holding down the fort. There's been a lot of things that we've been drinking from a fire hose here. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be addressed. And Erica, thanks coming in, our relief pitcher. And hopefully we'll start tackling these problems. not these challenges, they're not problems, they're just challenges to provide solutions. And as we, and I just, once again, I really appreciate all, especially Michelle and Amy, your patience of dealing with, of just as we're going through discovery. It can be challenging, and it's very much appreciated, I know, by me and from the commission and by other people that work with us. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, and I also really appreciate you take the time to explain all this to us so that we're not just sitting here going, oh, yeah. I really do. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. I love this stuff, so ask me any questions all the time.
Well, it's a challenge. You know, I think our mission and our goals are so important to remember as we look at these applications and understand that we've had a long history, sometimes not understanding fully the LAFCO process as various organizations, independent organizations, the county itself, and various districts. And so it's an education process both ways, and I do think that that engagement in looking at our policies and programs, the work you've done in outreach to the special districts, to the cities, to the county staff is much appreciated. And you're bringing us along. We're all going to hope to someday have a little bit of Michelle's knowledge to deal with these issues. So thank you. Okay, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nobody's online, so we'll just do it that way.